Yes, this is the project belongs to recipe manager application. Earlier I had done projects using MongoDB database. It is a NoSQL database. In this project I had used PostgreSQL as my database. In PostgreSQL the data were present in rows and columns. This is the flowchart of my project. And at the beginning of a user using the system, user have to register to the system using username, email and password. After user registration, user have to log in to the system using email and password. If user provide any incorrect credentials, uh, the auth nothing but authorization and authentication using JWT JSON Web Token. It throws an unauthorized access error. If no error were present in user credentials, it give an token by you for specific user. By using these token, the user can will perform these operations like adding an recipe and updating an specific recipe and deleting an specific recipe and getting a specific recipe from all recipes and get all recipes which were added by the user. If uh, recipes were present in system, the user able to add the recipe to favorite list and delete it from favorite list, and user able to fetch all the recipes in favorite list. Here I'm using PostgreSQL as my database, and here I had created a database named recipe, and it contains three tables: one user table, and recipes table, and favorite recipes table. I'm going to show all these tables. First, user table. User table contain columns: user ID, username, email, password, and recipe table contain recipe ID, title, ingredients, and description. Steps are nothing but procedure and user ID. And favorite recipes table contain favorite ID, recipe ID, and user ID. At beginning, this database is empty. All three tables are empty. And here I had wrote total approx 10 APIs for this project, and these two APIs are responsible for user APIs, and remaining these all APIs are recipe management APIs. Now I'm going to register a new user. Registering a new user. This is a post request. I'm going to keep the request to post, and this is my API user and register. I'm going to add the URL user log register. In body, user will register using username, email, and password. I'm going to give these three things in JSON format. The username is Shwant, and user email ID is shwant@gmail.com. This is a post request for registering a new user. Just hitting enter. Yes, user registered successfully. I'm going to check the user had added in database or not in users table. Yes. User ID is 20, name Yashwant, and email yashwant@gmail.com, and password is hashed password because of privacy reasons. Now I'm going to add another user named Sumant, Sumant@gmail.com. I'm going to hit enter. User registered successfully. I'm going to check the it added or not. Yes, Sumant user added into the users table with user ID 21 and sumant@gmail.com and hashed password. Next API is for login API, users login. It is a post request, user login. For login, username is not required, only email and password is required. I'm going to give email ID ishwant@gmail.com and password is this. Just hitting enter. Yes. login successfully and token had generated for user Ishwant. I'm going to copy these token. I'm going to place these token aside for further usage. I'm going to keep these token in authorization. Yes. Now I'm going to log in using sumant@gmail.com. Hit enter and I got token. I'm going to save this token somewhere at here. Yes. And next API is add a recipe. The API is a post request and recipe add is an API URL. Just copying thing and it is a post request. Just pasting here. This API is used to post but add and recipe by specific user. I'm going to add recipe, add a sample recipe. This is my recipe. I'm going to add this recipe to the user. It is in JSON format. Recipe add. It is in post request data. Hitting enter. Yes, recipe added successfully. I'm going to check in my DB. Recipes DB. Oh, recipes table. Yes, recipe ID is 14. Title noodles and the ingredients, description, steps, and all things were present. At here, user ID 20. I'm going to check the user ID who added this item. Yes, 20 user ID is Ashwant. Ashwant@gmail.com had added an recipe to the system. New recipe ID is 14 and noodles and user ID is 20. And as now I'm going to perform another operation is patch operation. Patch operation is nothing but update and recipe. Only specific registered user will update these recipe recipes. Patch request. Okay. First, I am going to get whatever the recipes were present in this account. Yes, only one recipe were present with the recipe ID is 14 and title is noodles. I'm going to update these 14th recipe ID content using patch request. I'm going to change the title noodles to spicy noodles. Spicy noodles. I'm hitting enter. Yes, recipe updated successfully. I'm going to check it is updated or not in the recipes table. Yes, noodles changed to recipe spicy noodles. Now I'm going to change again back to noodles. Send. Yes, recipe updated successfully. I'm going to check in my DB and table. Yes, it changed to spicy noodles to noodles. Now I'm going to delete these noodles recipe from H1 user ID using delete request. Delete. Yes, recipe deleted successfully. I'm going to check in my recipes table. Nothing were present. And again, I'm going to post nothing but add an recipe to Yashwant's user ID. Yes, added recipe added successfully. I'm going to check. Yes, noodles had added to Yashwant's user ID. Here the recipe ID is changed to 15, 14 to 15. I am using this serial ID in table creation and user ID is 20. I'm going to check. Yes, user ID 20 is Yashwant. Yashwant added these noodles recipe into the list and next APIs are uh, get mm, get a recipe with ID, get a recipe by ID. I'm going to check what are the recipes were present. Yes, in Yashwant user ID only noodles recipe were present with the recipe ID is 15. I'm going to get only 15th recipe ID specific one nothing, but I'm going to get only this one, only one present. This recipe ID is 15, title is noodles, and content you all get. And next, post request, add a recipe to favorites. This is an post request. I'm changing to post. And post request, recipe favorite ID, recipe fave, and here ID is recipe ID is 15. I'm going to add 15 recipe ID to favorite list. The title is noodles, and I'm going to post request, recipe added to favorite list. I'm going to check in my DB, recipes table. Yes, favorite ID is 21, recipe ID is 15. Yes, I had sent these 15 recipe ID to the favorite list. It added to 15 to the favorite list, and user ID is 20. And I'm going to check user ID. This user ID 20 is Ishwant. He added noodles recipe to favorite list. Yes, I got this. Now I'm going to change my user to Yashwant to Sumant. Here I saved this token. I'm using this token now. Copying token and going to change the authorization token to Sumant token. And I'm going to add an recipe using this recipe add API. Okay, I'm going to change only a little bit here. And it is a post request. I'm going to get data that then yes, I got this data. I'm going to add this recipe. Here the sample data were present. I'm going to add this data, recipe data to user Sumant account. Yes, recipe added successfully. Now I'm going to check in my DB. Recipe table. Yes, caramel popcorn added to recipes table. Here the recipe ID is 16. It were added by user 21. User 21 means Sumant user ID added and recipe caramel popcorn to the recipes list. Caramel popcorn 16 and user ID is 21. And now I'm going to use another API to add data in favorite list. Yes. Post request recipe favorite ID. This is a post request. Oh, first, I'm going to get what are the details, what are the recipes were present in Sumant user account. Yes, I'm going to get all things using get request. Yes, only caramel popcorn were present in Sumant user ID with recipe ID is 16. I'm going to add these caramel popcorn to my favorite list. Favorite by 16. 16 is the recipe ID. 16. It is an post request. Hitting enter. Recipe added to favorite list. I'm going to check my favorite recipes table. Enter. Yes. 22. 22, 16 and 21. 21 is nothing but user ID. User ID 21 means Sumant, and user ID 21 means Sumant. And here recipe ID is 16. Recipe ID is 16. 16 nothing but caramel popcorn. Yes. Sumant ID. Yes, Sumant ID 21 added caramel popcorn to his favorite list. The favorite ID is 22. And this delete request is used to delete an recipe from favorite list. I'm just hitting enter. This recipe deleted successfully. I'm going to check in my DB. Yes, it had deleted. Now I'm going to add this recipe added in my table, and if I use this get request, I'm going to hit this one. Yes, caramel popcorn were present in favorite list in Suman's user ID, and the ad prepared this